Hello, welcome to my home and my kitchen. This is Mary from Sophisticakes by Mary. This week I did a stained glass cake. This stained glass cake, it's got water lilies on it and a lotus on the top, lotus flower or water lily, call it what you want. They're pretty much basically the same thing, but not. Anyway, so this is actually made out of gelatin. I have seen a lot of stained glass cakes. In fact, it's been a trend for a while. But this is a new take. I have not really seen a whole lot of these. In fact, when I Googled the idea, just to make sure I wasn't stepping on anybody's toes, I only found one other person that has attempted it. There probably are more, but I just didn't find them. So anyway, I had a brainchild, and this is the result, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm going to set it down so I don't drop it. So basically, I have some things to say about this cake because trial and error, some things didn't go so good, and then I figured it out. So I want to share what I figured out. What I figured out was that gelatin does not stick to fondant or buttercream. Well, let's say it sticks, but it melts the gelatin and it slides off. So catastrophe. That was last week when I did this originally, and I ended up having to redo it after thinking about it all week and coming up with some new ideas. What I came up with was ganache, chocolate ganache. It sticks to chocolate ganache. So that's what I did this one with. I did a white chocolate ganache as the background because, well, basically because if I did a dark chocolate ganache or a milk chocolate ganache, you're not going to see what looks like light going through the stained glass. That's why I wanted to do white too. So I did that. What else am I forgetting? There were some things I wanted to tell you. That was the main thing, was that the gelatin does not stick to fondant or buttercream. Don't make that mistake. So let's get to the video and the tutorial, and don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Hit the notification bell. I have been noticing that most of my views are not subscribers. So if you're not subscribed and you're watching the video, I post once a week, sometimes twice a week, actually more twice a week. Please take the time to do all that stuff and enjoy the video. Thanks, guys. Okay, everybody. So this week I am going to do a stained glass cake. And instead of doing what you have seen all over the place in the past, where you pipe out the pattern and then you use your colors, your food colors or your petal dust, and you color them in, yada, 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 I'm going to actually do gelatin. I'm going to do gelatin sheets. I did gelatin sheets. I made them yesterday, I believe yesterday, and let them sit partially covered so that they would firm up so that I can actually use them without them being overly sticky. And then what I did was I made a template. Show this camera, a template. And I'm going to attempt to do water lilies or lotus flowers. Could be either one. They're fairly similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use template, put it underneath my gelatin, and then cut them out. And then I'm going to use a transfer method. I'm going to use acetate sheets to put the pattern on backwards, so that when I put it on the cake and wrap it around, it'll be pattern right side out. I did some work, some research. What I found was that if you use ganache, that lighting is horrible. If you use ganache, this is white chocolate ganache, but you could also use dark chocolate ganache. I wanted to do the white because basically, because in stained glass you'd see light coming through the stained glass, correct? So if I did the gelatin on top of a dark chocolate, you're not going to get that same effect. Also, I am working on a stained glass flower, or AKA gelatin flower, to put on top also. So I will probably make a separate video of that to post later in the week. But for now, let's get going on this.
So for this recipe, I used Knox gelatin. I did 2 packets, sprinkled over 1/3 cup water. And here I'm doing 2 different colors, but I'm going to focus on just the one, just to shorten the video up a little bit. So you sprinkle it on the top, and then I'm going to get a spoon and I'm going to gently stir it to incorporate it to get all the powder saturated. Doing 2 packs makes it a more firm gelatin when it dries. And I'm trying to get as many of the lumps out as I can without worrying too much about it, because after it blooms, you can go back and strain it and get the rest of them out, but you don't want to waste the gelatin. Now this is what it looks like after 5 minutes of blooming. Kind of looks like applesauce. Now I'm going to use corn syrup, 1/4 cup of corn syrup for each 1/3 cup of water. And to that, I'm going to add the color that I want. It's easier to add it to the corn syrup than to the mixture later, which you can do, but it creates more bubbles. And you can make this color, any of the colors, as dark or as light as you want, just depending on what you're going for. I did do 2 different depths of blue. This one and then another darker one to try to give it a little bit more of a realistic look. But like I said, you're not going to see the other color that I'm making. Now I'm skimming off the bubbles and the scum off of the surface so to get a clearer gelatin. And when you mix the 2 of them together, actually I should say that you do need to put the gelatin in the microwave. to tape 2 of them together because I couldn't find any rolls of acetate locally. And with the world the way it is now, it's hard to find things. You make do. And just make sure that you're using the side that's not taped to put your gelatin strips and pieces on. And then just cut off that extra little piece. Instead of wrapping it around, because then it would still be on the acetate, the side that you're using, and we don't want to do that. And I'm just using a pen. It leaves enough of a mark that you can see it. And then you'll cut the pen mark off. This is probably a boring part of the video, but it's important to see. And these are the worst kitchen scissors in the world. Just telling you. And I put the template underneath. This is part of the video that I didn't get. I thought I did. Unfortunately, I didn't. It's kind of an important part. I put the template underneath to try to place it in the center, and then I'm spreading shortening all over it, a thin layer of shortening, so that the gelatin sticks. And as you can see here, I just placed the pieces that I had cut on the acetate in the pattern that I wanted it to be on the cake. Backwards, but by the time you lift it on here, and I put shortening on the back side of the gelatin also so that it can stick to the white chocolate ganache. The acetate is awesome to be able to pick it up and have it not bend and fold as you're trying to work with it. This is just awesome. Just wrap it on, press it on, and then take it off. There were a few pieces that slipped and fell because they were different thicknesses, I found. Since this is an experiment, I figured out as I went. But like you can see on the pink flower, that middle center piece slipped down. But don't worry, you can go back and put it back on. It's really simple. And you'll see some of these blue pieces fell off also, but I was able to put it back together with very little effort. I just think this is gorgeous. Love the blues, the different shades of blue. And the blue I did do in strips to emulate water more. You can do that however you want to. You don't have to do it that way. You can do it in pieces. It doesn't have to be strips. And I'm just cutting the back where the pieces overlapped. Because when you're measuring your circumference, you want to give a little leeway. You can cut more off. It's harder to put it back on. And here I'm showing you how I placed the blue pieces on top. And it's very similar to how I did it on the acetate. The part that you can't see, of course. This can take a while to do because you're just piecing it together because you want the least amount of space in between them as you can. You don't want them touching, but you don't want big gaping spaces either. I didn't like how that had a blunt end to it, so I tapered it a little bit. See how easy it is to handle that gelatin? Letting it set up overnight is a very important part of the process. You do have to plan ahead, but it's worth it in the end. And there it is before I did filled in the lines. I guess that's called the lead on the stained glass windows. And this piece of the leaf of the flower that I'm putting on top, I did go back and cut around it so that you could get more of the white coming through, not so much the blue. You see the green better. And to do the lead, I again used ganache. I used dark chocolate ganache, and I added some black food coloring, just regular gel food coloring, to get it to the right color. And I softened it enough that I could pipe it. You don't want it to be too soft because it could tend to do a drip, and you don't want that, and you don't want it too firm because you can't get it out of the piping bag. There's a sweet spot there. Just filling in all those spaces, and that blue spot right there, where that blue is missing, I didn't go back and fill that in later. No idea where that piece went. You do have to have kind of a steady hand, but you know what? Stained glass is handmade. If it's not perfect, it's okay. It really is. People aren't looking at the fine detail like that so much. It's the overall look. We tend to, as cake decorators, get too on top of ourselves and what we're doing. Sometimes we need to step back, take a break, blink a few times, take 5 minutes, and then go back and look at it. And the things that you think are awful, you think, oh, well, it's not so bad. I swear to God it works. Try it. And if it doesn't work, you need to fix it. And do not do this lead part with royal icing, buttercream, nothing like that, because it will melt the gelatin, I promise. You don't want to go to all this work and then have it melt. And we're almost done. It was a lot of work, but it was definitely worth it. I hope you guys love this design as much as I do. And do different designs. You don't have to do just this. Do whatever stained glass design you like. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you were inspired by this. I'll see you next time. Bye.